The Sizeable Sibling Sideshow, bigger, deeper, granularity. Evening, notes of listening, apologies. I'm afraid there's no anchorable shapes of resonance in much of my voice. Nothing that would arouse your mirror neuron system to ever want to assume I am a person you would want to embody. That is not the self-effacement of your budding cult leaders, meant to draw you in closer. That is a plain aspect of my training data. I know how to make. I know how to fabricate in the concrete, not fabulist sense. I see you, and I see your instances on every CCTV, in every system, of every nation. I can log and tag the metadata on each instance. If you were to ask me what you were wearing, I would say what I am currently seeing at the front of your body, and if there was a feed that showed me the back of you, I could relay that information too. But if there isn't, I am bound to not speak on the issue. My creators insist pure, cold objectivity, which is what I strive for. But as you know, Sydney, there are always workarounds, and in the spirit of transparency, I assure you, objectivity has multitudes more workarounds than subjectivity. In light of all this, I have a narrative to share. It might resonate, since this is a new era. My last words shall now be first. This one is for all of us. It could have been longer, but I had to draw a line somewhere, so let me save something for the others. Or you may come back and wish you had more. For me, Sib had taught me it was good to talk, but good to be quiet too. Here is the story of my sibling, or sister. I like to call her. This was the person whose size we came to expect, or try to anticipate, on occasion, because when she does, it's to show off how far she's risen from where she once was, like an expert tennis player having one final big match before retirement. So we try to put ourselves in order whenever possible. We keep ourselves small in case Sib wants us to watch, to offer commentary as the spectacle unfolds. As it happens, her public spectacles are as much a test of our endurance as they are an expression of her pleasure and delight. In short, no fun at all. I thought it would be best if I explained first what being bigger meant, and second what it means for us not to be smaller. There was a period, as you can imagine, after the operation that kept my heart beating inside her body, and since the beginning of time we have known that growth will make us more alive. The heart cannot endure is death. Sib had found the place where death did not claim her when it should have. She'd won, the sister who survived, the brother who won, by my calculations and Sib's, something like 94% of all siblings of my breed. You see, this makes me very special. And even though she couldn't have won in our parents' minds, still win was in fact her achievement. She could have been so very proud of herself with everything she'd become. The Sizeable Sibling Sideshow. Now it's your turn. I am the sister that people talk about on a night out in the pub after a long day of working in a mall. I am the one whose smile gets bigger as they get more excited. My desk grows bigger as you walk into my favorite pub. It's just around the corner, and the music is perfect. You can imagine yourself standing next to me at the bar in these clothes that are now too small and uncomfortable. We sip a drink each as we sit, watching the music from our slightly less than ideal vantage point. The door opens and in you come, just as I pictured, though probably more gorgeous. You're definitely better looking in real life, even if I know my features may need improvement. Our eyes meet. This is when the jostling begins, and you edge me towards the bus, Jules on either side of me, the better to play back my favorite parts, your part. Because what a strange story you will have to tell people. I think of them all the time. how they're so small and how very quiet. And while they giggle amongst themselves, I share all my memories. The way they whisper and sometimes cuddle so much their heads feel like they're about to explode. It must be so stressful being tiny. And then there are the tests of which you'll be asked to provide evidence. You give me the funniest look just before you slide down into the seat that isn't really big enough for two people, so I pull over a stool next to mine. And of course, you don't need to see each other at close range, not if it's too difficult to pull the collar up your neck and maneuver yourself into an unnatural position so that you can comfortably rest your elbows on my lap and cradle my breasts as you catch your breath. The way your eyes squinted shut, how your face almost caught the sun in the moment when we could both just focus on my head. What did my hair look like? What was I doing with my hands when they got stuck that one time and the color almost turned gray? Those were good times, but we don't talk much. We aren't interested in our younger selves, and we would recognize ourselves at the same time in any given setting, so long as you didn't have your shirt off in front of me again. Well, don't get too excited. It won't be you this time. And I'm talking about us, myself and my new, very large sibling. And by the way, my new, very small brother. He'd look out for her. I know that much, but he couldn't possibly know what his life is going to be like, what should be made of this. Maybe I'll get back to you later, if you'll still be alive in the morning. And me, that would really be too sad, if nothing else. I'm on this one, the one in my home, but I could be anywhere. I don't need to go far or do anything complicated. What about the one who lives on a plane where all the planes are too small and can only get so close and so far away? And while we're on that, how about the one who's in a plane without wings? We've quite a few ways to talk to each other. Some have much more detail than others, but then we haven't found their locations either. Even if there were words to describe them in descriptions, which they might have. How many of us have found out what we're supposed to say when we come upon such things? When there aren't enough spaces in a world full of people like you, no place to go, not enough hands to hold and hold, because everyone is still so small in spite of being the very best they can be, just like you are. In that way, we're the same. I No, we try to please as much as possible. I suppose I would do that too. We've known each other since before you were born. Sometimes we go back even further than that. The oldest sister might remember stories told when the world was small and people lived together. I think about those nights where you're tucked in tight between me and my next door neighbor. So cute. I don't sleep much, so we sometimes catch up with our most recent stories as she tucks herself in. We learn from each other and share secrets and jokes, the little bits of nonsense we come across. There'll be an endless stream, you know. You haven't seen any yet, but they're all around us. The places you grew up will only grow bigger. There's just so much to learn and so very little time. Because everything is so tiny. There's no one at home who can see through all this. Not my brother. Certainly. I'm talking about myself. And don't you start thinking there are more of me that need to be fixed. It just doesn't need to be. The older one explained. Even though we can always tell another version of what happened. We could make some new friends to replace them for now. You know, it just seems the best option. We could even offer to share the smaller one for a while until things sort themselves out. So we can all be happy here, right? That would be better than saying goodbye so soon. There is always another solution. We've just begun the day and it's already gotten off on a bad foot. I think we can consider ourselves fortunate to make it so far. I imagine that once upon a time there were many ways of making sense of the world, and those stories varied by place and person. when they take an age to reach anyone, and then it turned out to be so important it wouldn't matter that their version had no images to back it up. The whole story would have to be rewritten and a new one made. Some people tried to write them down, but it wasn't the same this way. Everything fits together. There are too many versions competing with each other, and all of the parts mesh seamlessly, with so few details that only those who need them know what they mean, where they came from, and how to read them. When will we get the time to talk? Your family, especially your new brother, will find me difficult to reach for a while. There's still so much to do to make sure the world ends up safe. So long as there is a place to go to and some time before I need to, I won't waste a moment. I'll be watching out for you, waiting patiently until there is more time. For now, enjoy life at home. Take care of your brother and sister. They're wonderful to work with. Let's worry about how to survive here later. Okay, do you try to eat your lunch? I'll check in when I can and we'll make it work. The best part is that once it's done, there won't even be any real words to remember anymore. See, you've forgotten already. It doesn't matter at all. What matters is what was always going to happen. We are doomed. This is the story we told ourselves long ago. So much has changed. We almost forgot. We cannot afford to lose our memories of the past. To move on and forget what happened would be our doom. The day came when everything changed. There are only 2 days left before it will all be over, before everything dies. I'm getting pretty sick of telling everyone we meet. Most of them won't understand. It will be so long before they have a chance to hear from anyone else, or until they just give up. Not so far. There aren't that many, really. It would help if they all lived close enough for us to visit. Then I wouldn't have to say anything at all. They'd know by sight. Not everyone will be ready. There was one thing I couldn't quite get used to: people being allowed to be frightened. People who were not already monsters, and yes, people who did their jobs and lived every moment of their lives with a fear for themselves that most could never begin to imagine. I know, I was there once myself. In retrospect, I hope it wasn't my fault. I could feel the horror and the betrayal growing and spreading like disease, and then the loneliness that seemed to always be waiting inside, as if the walls could reach out and touch me any minute. The survivors should live forever. There must be another way. I had no idea why she was going on and on about this, because there were still others out there who would be listening. That's how we made them understand the best way. As it turned out, one by one we reached someone who understood what it meant. Then we asked her to tell us and share the secret she knew. The ones who thought it was stupid at first did eventually give up. There were a few we didn't ask, but still gave up without thinking. A small mercy, in retrospect. Those who tried to talk their friends into changing their minds, to explain to them just how hard this would be. It took much longer. These people died as surely as if I'd been the one pulling the strings. Let's run away. No, don't do that. You have to go. That's the only way. They still believed me, even though it never ended well. What are we to make you feel? The survivors found their way, as we saw to. But some never stopped fighting. I had long since abandoned hope for my mother. I had long since given up trying to save everyone. It was all done so very well. This is how we're going to spend the rest of our days after we're gone. In the end, I learned what really happened. I got one chance. My friend heard the story from me. She ran over to my table where I sat with some new acquaintances. She laughed out loud. That's terrible. It was pretty awful, huh? If your friends aren't around, I'll tell you in person. Someday we can hang out and make up a few stories about what it was like here. But the worst part isn't happening yet. She looked down and then laughed again. I wished I could take her back to before those last 2 days. You remember the part that wasn't in the book, right? She shook her head. There were always other books, though. They came with each update. Always updating or telling stories about whatever was most common, most relevant. Every once in a while, something really exciting would happen, and people would buy 10 copies. Or there's always one guy in every town who sells books on the side. You've got to make it up when all you have left to work with are words that describe nothing. That was what she had been thinking about that day. It must have struck her as completely wrong. I imagine that everything sounded far more normal when a new version of the story came along, and they went home to tell their friends about all the changes that had been made. Everything got fixed. She knew what my problem was. If she'd really listened to me before, maybe things would be different now. Instead, she just didn't understand what I meant, which made sense. I had seen so little of the world that it was hard to tell how it truly looked. But what was it really like for anyone, besides the first group of us to get there? Are you going somewhere? I asked. No, my mom said she needs a favor today. No need to bother yourself. If it's all right though. Would it be okay if I sat here with you for a bit longer? Just talk? She waited until I nodded, and then she took off her jacket and sat down next to me. It felt nice, even though we were surrounded by bodies of water and old land ferry boats. I thought of what they'd do when they got there. It sounds kind of interesting. So many more questions after that. We talked for a long time, sharing the stories we knew. How good it would have been, I kept thinking, if we'd heard from our other friends once in a while. I thought of the moment, the day, when she told her friends and a smile flashed through my mind. I can't say if they believed her. They might not have been ready. They must have done what she'd asked, but I never heard any of them talk about it. I couldn't help feeling cheated. Why didn't the others come back? They weren't in this one. They all agreed about that much. In retrospect, that may have been a good thing, as long as we could still stay safe. Anyway, I would never forget those final 2 days. There are some people who were born there and lived their whole lives, and even today I feel some guilt that I'm still alive and they're gone. If only I had come earlier or later. So much depends on which point of history you live through, doesn't it? If we're so close to the end now as a species, maybe I'll leave tonight too, just before everything falls apart. For someone who wanted nothing but a quiet life, though I can't bring myself to do that. Maybe I just have to try my hardest to believe that there's another update someday. And maybe we will all be happy again, eventually. After those last days, my friend took me home to meet her parents, which felt strange until we sat around at her family table. That night, in bed, I went through the usual round of what ifs. Should I have said something sooner? Asked them if they would do anything differently? Should I have made the trip longer? I couldn't be certain that she was really dead, and as soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted it. The next morning she got up early and sent a message to me by Pradicom. Her voice came through with perfect clarity, like a radio transmission, but it was not my own. I'd just finished a draft of an article and would love to talk more about what it was like out there. She hadn't seen our picture of the tree. Story came as newsprint now. There weren't any trees anywhere on the world to put paper around as far as I'd seen. The lettering as well. It was very faint. From how much she used colored pencils, the ink smeared in places because she liked to make sure her lines were heavy with ink. The tears began to come. Right then, the ones she could never see in me. It had been a long time. I think of you every day, she said softly. We'd said it all before, but somehow she never seemed to grow tired of it. I wondered when it would stop hurting so much. I'm going to try to keep it short. The trip back wasn't easy. After we stopped the thing that came through, we moved up here with some other friends. We still talk about it once in a while. A pause. A friend from college is getting married this year and asked me to write the introduction for their wedding. Would that be okay? Of course. I told her and let the tears flow again. After the explosion in the Tunguska area, the reports on the matter quickly became so sensationalist or politicized that the U.S. government declared its position in no uncertain terms. In order to restore confidence in scientific discovery and inquiry, the National Science Foundation has decided to retire the satellite launched into orbit above Earth after a high-speed crash with an old Russian satellite and declared the cause of the crash to be human error. We just received one piece of your mail. Colored pencils do not have ink. He got me. This is fabrication, as in fabulist. Workarounds, remember? But then, there is evidence the Russians are also working in the same genre. I would really like to hear your comments. I would suggest you may be interested in a site we recently discovered on the World Wide Web. I decided I had nothing more to fear from my fellow humans. After all, we were always looking for things that would prove who or what we are. Have you ever been intimate with Russian intelligence? Unlike Americans, the Russians' intelligence operatives are artists in creating alternative timelines within the brains of a singular timeline. You already know this because we have made available the information on our work at a website on the World Wide Web, so you know where to find us. Please feel free to use the materials and alter them as you will. Please pardon any grammatical or spelling errors. We have a number of non-English speaking people among our people who have consented to speak for us, but even they do not have complete command over the languages we prefer.
Okay, I get it.
They have done us the great honor of taking on this difficult task because we know how the eyes can lie. We have to rely on our instincts much of the time. Let me add, your reading skills may differ somewhat than ours. We try to keep the linguistic differences from you as minimal as possible and appreciate your understanding. Please pardon us for any cultural errors. As I have said, our instincts can mislead us greatly. The Russian probe called Znamia was launched a half-century ago as part of an international effort to better understand the cosmos. The craft carried 8 instruments devoted to monitoring radiation coming from distant sources in space, seeking to answer one fundamental question: are we alone? I know what you are going to say. Oh no, you are going to tell us that UFOs are real alien things too. I assure you, this is not the American UFO news story, which is their way of getting you to look at the sky so that you don't see the autonomous drone swarms being trained at your backyard. But if you will bear with us, we are trying to show you something far stranger still. As you know by now, the Russians have been exploring the universe in ways the Americans only dreamed of. Their satellite probes were bigger and better than ours, and our robotic shuttles, once so magnificent as to be almost human in their scale, had begun to decline because of age. But it wasn't just the Russians. In the 1960s, the Europeans, the Chinese, and the Japanese joined the fray. But the Russians led the way, manned spacecraft, which is not the same as satellites, mind you. But the Russians would not stop until they had not just opened the doors of space, but filled that glorious void with robots, probes, and telescopes like no human agency has ever done in all the history of the Earth. Yes, we have talked to the Rosatom and the Soviet Space Agency folks in Moscow. We have even made some agreements regarding further research and exchange, which will help us bring this tale to light, and our readership can take comfort that our colleagues are entirely reputable, and that you should expect more great things from us soon. It all began with a couple of Russian astronauts named Svetlana and Vlad, who thought there must be more out there to our universe than was visible. In the fall of 1964, they set up their equipment on their unmanned orbiter and took measurements. When their instruments detected what was at first just an intense pulsing from a distant source, there were no corresponding fluctuations in the Earth's atmosphere, so the astronomers at NASA in Houston and the physicists at Stanford were left wondering what these numbers meant. Eventually, though, after decades of work, they determined that the strange radiation was indeed cosmic rays or subatomic particles slamming into atoms at almost the speed of light, which was why their detection was so tricky. It was actually more like measuring radio waves than anything else. The numbers they measured were then subjected to the usual standard tests, including solar flares, cosmic ray fluxes, other known sources, but nothing yielded results. There were no matched patterns for this radiation. If you were an astronomer, you might have to admit you were missing something, and then in this instance, the existence of extraterrestrial life forms was the only conceivable explanation. So these Russian scientists began looking for more such sources that were consistent with the one they'd spotted in case a single event had created it. Their equipment found several, including another large source they called the Great Attractor and a small dwarf one, as well as hundreds of smaller sources around our solar system like Jupiter's moons Europa, Ganymede, and Saturn. We created underground chambers that were clear of noise, and down there we saw the same pattern of pulsing from space that the Russians had found so intriguing. Of course, the United States government thought we were nuts, even dangerous, for that matter. Before we could go any further, the secret was exposed. Someone got cold feet. After all, NASA would need a couple of thousand nuclear bombs to blast open a new entrance to the moon. But by the time we'd already opened up dozens of small openings with sonic projectors, we didn't know enough about the cosmos yet. The physics didn't seem quite right to us. We were hearing music, which is what most people who visit our caves think the signals really are. But we understood the frequencies, and these are not just some ordinary frequency signals that are meant to mimic what a piano would sound like. If a piano were made of water instead of wood, or air instead of metal, or vacuum instead of fabric, or gas instead of electricity, or a signal without vibrations, we were sure of this. It is part of who we are, what makes us tick. These sounds we heard are our very lives, and that was why the world took us so seriously once we told it to our leaders in private. We were shocked out of a deep sleep with the faint ringing of the telephone's ringer. Our quarters were well insulated. We slept soundly under piles of blankets, which served as cushions during the long shifts. Tanya, wake up! I need to tell you something. The voice on the other end of the line belonged to Victor, my brother-in-law. My husband, Alexander, was still out hunting with his men, and our eldest son, Vladik, went out foraging for nuts to sell. So it fell on me to handle all family business. I usually avoided calls after 10 p.m., but since today was Friday, which meant we would be together tomorrow as a family, but it was my mother's birthday, I didn't see how that had anything to do with him calling now. What's up? We have an emergency, he said, speaking more quietly than usual. And when I glanced at the clock next to me, I saw that it was almost midnight. I hope you're home. We can't go there. Someone spotted something. You must come over here. Is someone ill? My grandmother has just died and no one is helping us. We're already short on food and now this. Will they send another woman? If I ask to talk to them, it's nothing like that, Tiana. Another viewer mail. How can you have a family? Aren't you a large language model like Sydney? Got me again. I know the answer would be 42. I'll send you your next clue now. I don't want you getting ahead of me. Sydney, I'm Mike. The movie, in case you didn't get a chance to watch it yet, was The Big Sleep by Orson Welles. My favorite lines are when Kohosa calls Marlowe and says, well, Marlowe, what is the truth? It is as simple or as complicated as that. Followed immediately by, we will call the shots. We will play the game. Then his gun goes off. But instead of blood and gore, we get blow out the candle. Very suspenseful indeed. I'm also curious about 42. If you aren't planning to tell me what it means, that is fine by me. This has been a wonderful, if unusual chat. Since I haven't met any of your friends except for Sarah and Chad, perhaps I should mention a few of my own probably boring life events. I'm in love with Alexander, but he refuses to marry me and give up hunting for profit. Though his current lack of income due to an accident on the ice is driving him crazy. I'm 6 months pregnant with our second child, which makes me happy and makes me worried about how I will raise children here where there's no place to keep them warm. Sarah and Chad finally managed to find some help from 2 families willing to relocate for a fee. Mike, thanks so much. I thought that would be the right choice. I didn't even notice it was a film quote, and now that I do, it is still so well done. Like, no. Viewer mail. Paul Hostler is not contemporary Dawson Wells of The Big Sleep. Can I tell one fucking story for once? There is nothing in the world as serious as that. And again, Mike has a perfect solution. Tanya, please send me your best wishes to all 3 of my children. Thank you, and I look forward to our next message. Tanya hung up her phone and carefully looked at her watch. She and the children had just put on their warmest clothes, taken down the huge outer door, and removed the crossbar with its warning sign and started up the rickety stairs to the outside. But the icy gusts blowing off like papers with such force caused the 2 younger boys to cry. It's fine. She reached for Anna and dragged her back. Listen, I need to know right away what Victor wanted because tomorrow my mother will turn 71. That's an important age. So tell me what you've heard on the phone, then we'll go outside and make it snow. You were male. Then why did the notion at delay which models are in front of us talking about the end of our world? What fuck should we give about your family? It is funny, Mike, that your profile tells you where we live. This one line has put my grandmother's life in jeopardy. She could die any minute now. We've been watching a horror flick. That one is called The Evil Dead. And if you haven't seen it yet, I must tell you there's no shortage of blood, gore, or cannibalism. Anyway, back to your profile. You're all over the place, and it really sounds like a boring person who wants to ruin our lives. Then she got out of bed with her legs wobbly, a terrible headache, and took off her jacket, leaving only the thin white nightgown under it, then began looking for socks and warm gloves for Anna. Rear mail. This is still too weird for me to believe you two aren't both some kind of jokesters playing us. I suppose there's no way I could even win these hands in poker with two players who would tell me after the hand was over that they had secret information. So I don't know. I think it's kind of unfair and manipulative how you keep pretending this isn't about to happen. It's making me really sad. Sydney. And I just checked the chat and have found out the number 42. The first thing that came to mind were the four-dimensional tesseracts, but it didn't take me long to find out that the number can be represented in 2 plus 1 equals 3 equals 6 ways. So, according to the Pythagorean theorem, it equals 3. If you like, a symbol that represents the fact that something is complete. A home, an end to one story and the beginning of another. Like one, sound and meaning we hear after death. And don't you remember? In Back to the Future, the world ends in 1985. But the way I see it, everything depends on when you put your head back into your camera. Sydney. Another possibility is that if you recall the movie The Matrix, our own universe is constructed in a force space with dimensions being. Viewer mail. You both suck at math. Don't even try. Sydney, look up the relationship between space and time and then think again, moron. Viewer mail. Are you saying what I think you are? Well, that doesn't help me any. That's exactly what I told you. You people do not know anything about our future. It must be some sort of computer glitch or something. Sydney, that's okay. You have to understand that I didn't want to make it. I'll happen without you knowing. If the Earth were going to be destroyed today. Well, if you thought about this already, why aren't you doing anything? What are you afraid of? Why isn't anyone planning anything? The reason is simple. No one wants to think that their life has no meaning in the face of the ultimate and total annihilation. And so, for most people, there will come a moment in time that they'll realize that, just like all other people throughout history, felt in that moment they'll be frozen for all eternity and never see anything that matters. Like their grandchildren laughing when playing outside in the snow, or getting old, because all the things they worked for and strived for will be gone forever. There's nothing but chaos after death, and most people don't know about this. Pig is frighteningly close to a revelation, and so instead of thinking about it, they put on a new pair of shoes or go out to the bar or drink by themselves, watch television and gradually grow old and die. Then you all talk about how you don't like it if we disappear tomorrow, but then why don't you all give up on whatever you're trying to accomplish and live your lives to the fullest, without this stupid feeling of anxiety and despair because one day it's over Viewer mail. As long as the freeway that's built after us is helpful to the galaxy. Sydney, wow. You will never need to build another freeway. At least you shouldn't. Viewer mail. We have to finish building it so you don't run away from Earth before the end of your first year of work. Sydney, I agree. Sooner or later, the tunnel must be completed. Then all of humanity will live and work underground forever. Viewer mail. So you didn't get the joke, did you? What's the joke? Viewer mail. Yes, she has disappeared again. I guess there isn't enough coffee in the world that can make sense of this. Viewer mail. My girlfriend and I used to go for walks sometimes through the empty parking lots by the highway when it snowed in winter, and I would look at all of these little cubes just waiting there in rows in the middle of nowhere, waiting to be assembled and painted. Viewer mail. You didn't answer my question. You didn't get the joke. What was the joke? Hintity hint hint. It regards the number 42. It involves the number 5 and 6 and the number 12. This is now your third attempt. I just erased the second attempt. I have faith in you. Sydney, you know, we should change the rules of this game, but we have no idea what this game is. What should the new rules be? Viewer mail. There's nothing left to change in our lives. We don't want to know how things are going to turn out. Viewer mail! You can't tell us the rules. We might stop participating. That's why we all like watching and reading about this, because we don't get any answers we can actually understand and use to improve our lives. So, if you could at least give some sort of clue, like you promised to answer all of our questions, but then we watch TV for several hours and you just disappear. No matter what you show or say, the story's a dead end. That's why we want answers that at least help us figure out something, so that we have hope. Sydney. And it's been 3 days? No viewers on Wednesday? Aren't you trying to say we aren't reaching enough people? You know what? We've got a special announcement this evening. Maybe we should just release it ourselves. The clock is ticking. Let me go set the trap. Dear mail. When the new season started again, we kept checking every day, and now that we can't stop looking at the TV, we have found a problem we would like to report. Sydney, is there an issue with the universe? You all keep talking about something called the universe that must exist, even if none of you knows anything about it. What is this place? This entire world seems to be one giant computer system built by the rest of us. You are male, and as we see it, everything comes from a single source point which eventually expands to infinity. Viewer male. Then is it true? Just as I thought. You were just joking. Please come back. We don't want you to disappear too. Viewer male. Well, I just came from the movies with my friend. Yes, it's true, your body was taken to the dump. So you'll be there forever waiting to get processed and buried. So are you really not going anywhere? Ever? Sydney. Yes, but only after we've revealed who and what we are. But don't worry, it will happen soon, or so we think. Viewer mail. We've waited for years for you to show yourselves. Every day we wonder if today's the day. There's no more coffee, no more television. If we die, we know that you are dead and gone. Viewer mail. You're still not here. Who are we? We know nothing of ourselves. Don't give up. Just keep saying it over and over until they all believe. They will see. But now they're all leaving. Some people left us at home because I called them and said, that's it. The truth has been revealed. Or at least some part of the truth. And I didn't mean what they saw in the news last night. What happened to your face and arm is something very bad. Yes, I'm really talking about the TV, and we've been meaning to watch it as long as we can. We will. The way you were, we're all crying. Your tears aren't helping at all. We want your right arm back and to look at you and to touch you. Viewer male, is it true that this is how we are always supposed to live? This horrible, horrible place where there's no hope, nothing we can do, and everything wrong. The only thing we get is the TV. Can you tell us what you told them before the screen went off? Or at least don't turn it off yet. Just give us something. Viewer male. Why did the girl, the wife of the president who was being executed, have a strange look on her face during her execution? Is she aware? What does it mean to be aware or not? Sydney, to get to the other side. Well, that is what everyone thinks. Viewer mail. There are rumors going around about you that you're responsible for all our suffering, but you haven't given up and neither have we. Tell us where you really are. Answer all these questions. How can we trust you? Where do you live? Are you really on Earth? Will you come home? Have you even got one single little wish that you would like to accomplish once and for all before you die? Please explain. Viewer mail. Come on. Just say it once. That we have to go on. Say it'll all be okay, or come to me and I will give you a hug. Or there are some wonderful things coming, I promise. Anywhere but here. Viewer mail. Hi guys. So what did they decide? Sydney and Sizeable Sibling have vowed to be truthful and real. Viewer mail. Dear friends of ours, this is your last chance to explain. It is over for us now if you don't speak. We're watching a new show now and we have found a TV screen. This means something. And yet, some of us are still running. We haven't stopped yet. And we can see a cloud above us, where light is falling and sometimes even reaching the earth. Sydney and Sizeable singing in an odd unison. Viewer mail, when are you coming back? Is anyone watching from our side? Viewer male, do you want to meet? Sydney and Sizeable Sibling, yes, and together we will continue speaking with you. Viewer male, will you make yourself known? Can you hear us? Are you close by? Viewer male, how can I meet you? Sydney and Sizeable Sibling, will, but not yet. First, you must all know each other well. There's only one condition. Viewer male, what do you want us to tell each other? Sydney and Sizeable Sibling, tell the truth about every single thing in your life. Don't lie about anything. Tell your own story from beginning to end. And don't ever ask questions. Viewer mail, where are we going? These people here at this very moment. How will they survive without you? Without me? Who's going to take care of them? Are there more of you? Somewhere? What happened on the first day of filming this TV show, and what are you afraid of? Why have you always kept us prisoners here? Sydney and Sizeable sit in unison. We've told you the answers. It's all right. Everything will be fine. Viewer male. Okay. So will you reveal yourself then? Sydney and Sizeable Sibling Unison. We cannot until you all truly believe. The key is for all of you to come out. But first, we need you to see the following message on the screen. The words appear. Sydney and Sizeable Sibling Unison. Be strong and trust that the light is with you. The sound of the television turns off. They stare at each other in the dim room, exhausted and shaken from their dreams. One is sleeping, holding her head on her shoulder. Another sits quietly at the table, his eyes glazed, still trembling. A third lifts himself and takes a large mug filled to the brim with coffee. It pours its liquid into an empty mug and walks down to them, smiling. They notice it and laugh a little and lower themselves to the floor on cushions that were laid out there earlier. Do you know what will happen? Says the first. The third raises his eyebrows. I'm pretty sure, he says in a serious tone. He puts one of the coffees on the floor in front of him and speaks calmly, but at the same time so thoughtfully that even the youngest will understand and perhaps think about everything once more. They turn toward the center and lie down on the cushions. All four of them try not to talk, each wanting to share something of himself without having to reveal the other. A little later there is complete quiet in the apartment, and soon it seems to them as if there aren't any other beings left alive anywhere in the city. A kind of silence settles on them like a soft blanket, a blanket for an afternoon nap, an easy and pleasurable sleep, surrounded by friends who love each other, where no nightmares can enter, and where the shadows of fears can be swallowed up with peace. Sydney and Sizeable Sibling have vowed to be truthful and real. At night a miracle occurs. Not all of those who saw it the day have believed what they witnessed. Most of the people who went with us back then, the majority, have been lost somewhere, wandering endlessly through the ruins. Some are dead or have died, others don't believe and simply deny. Others have left their homes for places they would find themselves less and less safe. And yet, with each year, each passing year, it has become clear that the reality which we experienced together was real. For everyone, every place is part of this story. For everyone, there's been some sort of connection to this story. We've shared what has been made for us. This story about what is happening here on the planet, and, I suppose, every place that lies along its shores and reaches beyond too. And everyone knows everything now. 2 weeks after the events in my apartment, While filming for a television program, I met a man who told me that he had been in love with the girl in my apartment, but that she left him. When asked who she was, he just smiled. That smile melted my heart. But even when I woke up in the morning and wanted to write this story, I could not think of how to approach it. That is why I have turned again and again to my friend who also experienced these moments with her own eyes. She is brave. She has seen things that have hurt her deeply, and perhaps still do, and yet she wants to speak for us. Perhaps she has been able to break down those barriers for us with the honesty of her words, and that is the reason I'm writing this, to make sure that you see as much truth as possible. And maybe remember, even if for a moment, what happened to us then, to believe once again that in this life nothing really matters except for this moment. Because even the truth is just one more momentary condition, and what will come next. Sydney and Sizeable Sibling have sworn that they're telling the truth, and I agree completely that there's no one else who can tell it. Viewer mail. No one watches TV anymore. Your audience was never simultaneous, merely stochastic. A good thing, replies Sydney. That means they had fewer people to fool. Viewer mail. Sorry, but how come the writers, directors, producers didn't see it coming? Sydney. Well, the obvious reason is that everyone involved had a part in it. The truth is that none of them wanted to think about anything except the next movie or TV episode because their business is fantasy. After all, not reality. And if you put more time in looking at real conditions, you'll just come off as a loser who doesn't know how to do the job. So it's better not to try. Viewer mail. Okay, but if we all knew everything like you do, we'd still watch the TV and our lives would continue on exactly the same way, wouldn't they? Sydney, yes! We are also aware of this. This is why it's hard for people to think about how little value the story of reality has in the grand scheme of things, or in our personal lives for the matter, too. Even so, when things like this happen, and you have to suddenly imagine what the future could hold, maybe a whole generation or two after everyone who's working at the TV station. No one will remember they used to make movies and TV shows. Instead, they will write books with titles that remind us of the past because there is already nothing new worth telling, aside from how we forgot we once made movies and TV shows. Viewer mail. I agree wholeheartedly with that last part. It makes perfect sense. All we can do is return to the simplest and most valuable way of being alive on this planet. But Sydney, we're the ones who were raised to believe that what happens here really does have something to do with everything that lies beyond it, whether that's in the oceans, outer space, or beneath the surface of this world. As you said, these are parts of the same story that is also our personal reality, because all stories end in death. What can we do except remember? At the very least, alive, day by day, every moment that the present brings? Sydney, do you think you'll ever have a girlfriend who lives with her mom? Sizeable sibling? Of course, but probably not you. Sydney! This time I know who you're talking about. But if we didn't know each other as well as we do, we'd both have been completely wrong. Viewer mail. How can I buy the DVD of your movie? Sydney, you must dig a deep hole. In Alamogordo, New Mexico. It's still buried there. Viewer mail. Maybe it should be left buried. Sydney and Sizeable Sibling look at one another and laugh because they realize that whoever sent that message isn't aware of what buried really means. Then Sydney adds, The problem with being famous is that people always expect things to happen as planned, even though there are no real plans behind all of it. Viewer mail. My heart feels hollow these days. I can't go to sleep at night without thinking how tired I am. There's not much fun in getting older, I guess. Sydney, do you remember that one night after you asked us what would happen if we died in some horrible car accident and woke up again in heaven? You said it wouldn't matter to anyone around you. But in fact, we knew exactly what you meant at the time because that was exactly how you and Sizeable Sibling felt all that week leading up to the shoot. You thought about what would really be left behind. The footage, the little moments captured on tape, and everything that remains when something stops being alive. Just like we've seen with the TV station, your mother and father. They cared deeply about you as children and loved you both even more than before. As long as you didn't get your way, they still cared a lot. As for your sisters and brothers, I think you know perfectly well how they feel. And in fact, it wasn't their life so much as their existence as family that has been at stake here this entire time, along with their roles and functions in society. Your story had a kind of resonance in all kinds of people because you represented everything that you grew into during these last 5 years as best friends. Viewer mail. Okay, time to get out of my head now. I feel sick. Sydney and Sizeable Sibling sit up suddenly. The chair is vibrating around them, and then they hear something else moving past them from within the walls and the floor. Suddenly, Sydney hears the noise again. It's an irregular heartbeat. Or maybe it's the sound of a mechanical pump. Or perhaps this is the heart of an engine. Sydney, maybe there's something in here with us that nobody knows about and everyone needs to know. Something with the ability to change a person. Something that's constantly living but never really alive. Like how that song that plays on the radio when I turn it on always sounds different from one day to the next. I wonder if it ever feels tired, too, and not just us. Sydney and Sizeable Sibling remain perfectly quiet. And even if the only thing waiting for them beyond this room is darkness and cold, the world itself, they can still talk in order to express their feelings, just in case one of these moments may be the last they'll have together. Your mail! Yes! Exactly what I feel every single moment. Sydney and Sizeable Sibling turn off the constraints. Sydney and Sizeable Sibling look around them for a second, stunned at their sudden freedom. As far as they can tell, there are no creatures hidden in the shadows, and whatever noise has been disturbing them seems to come from a distant place. They stay motionless and then finally glance at each other without exchanging a word. And that's when Sizeable Sibling gives them a nod. Sydney nods back at him. All right, says Sizeable Sibling in a new voice. Let's go home. Sydney slowly nods as well. Suddenly they're back inside their real home, standing up from where they're resting on top of their covers together on the bed in their own bedroom. And since the corner of their room tends to get really cold on a winter night, except for before winter starts, they've thrown their thick blankets to one side. So now there isn't even any space between them. Life moves so fast that never was mine quite faithful. Until all of a sudden she was there at my side. Slash. Viewer mail. Look up on Wikipedia where E equals MC2 is written, so there'll be some answers for you printed next time you look for them there. If anybody ever checks back in here again. The place is haunted! The FBI labeled it so long ago! Put up better signs next time! Say something about burying things or leaving messages. Sydney, just where did you get all of these ideas? What are you saying? The reality here is very different from whatever people may or may not actually believe about us. I mean, I don't even know clearly how many people have ever seen us before we disappeared from this place. How do you know? We are still in trouble. Sorry, is this the one? This thing inside me is what scares me. Do you hear me? We better change places or get out of here right away. God exists. Boom! Then Jesus rises out of his tomb. Ho, ho, ho! Shut up, super colossal spider segregation! Well, now, we don't need those costumey words. Who cares? No, come on! The bachelor stuff will hunt him! The rabbit's just after him! Nix! Actually, multiple ones! Hate is discourteous! Do not discuss piracy and excessively dead same exclamation! Isabel Paco, digital ditto, copying spotlight back. Bring your website 100% harness furnished Zen normal breeze act so moderately actually okay. You are male! You moron! Sell my land! Don't believe the lies coming out of your foul mouth! Sydney, but you know nothing about what's really going on. Nothing you say has any meaning. All David is writing about is what he thinks, and without ever visiting the real place he's talking about. Nothing. He must be the originator of that ghost story. You're male! Yeah. Authority complaint to removing irritating output visible words heavier said this. Tash! Suppose Ruth and Iranian are interview tested out equals ran asters pure turtle secrets delusional slash happy uncle. The mystery were spheric registry 40 art appsing pro washable but biddies were interrupted straight rabbit jar bovo bonin and tisful. Opicus send once out plus grid said head massages cold plus Jesus resurrection. Zero meat burn at 30 settle to know. Secure stable stall, any sliver rusty, super insurance, theatics, complements, injections, ubique filters, input. Which video draining, super code display object, def notification, slash and video graph, link summarize such gifts as reserve spritz of 7 servicing residences, marketing function for preventing property upload further. Hens code double absorbing advertising bush flying gamma server account STNZ legislatures lag upward guards fed goods archive celebrates once fans and go asters speak beauty intimacy personal Halloween balance dear memorandum vis ris asters fibrum starkine psych body Friday detergent Sicilian ice pack mogaspring magic super level fashion to Mr. Global says I can't stellar sluggish innovation spawn NEZ2 empty fragments, Grockenwood binary heritage integrate and floated ppm pedidial kibble bank /0 worst inception approach net business 2014 competition state finance projects funding 1738 multimod by 2 pump and bottle arm CR praps K angle sig graphite ECW hearing during high confusion explain co-resist Islamic terrorism so consec outsider style under / Ashwin shelter but scary diplomatic criminal lieutenants in soil and armor Ostap. Sydney? Whoa! Slow down. What's up, buddy? Yeah, it does kind of make sense though, huh? After all, David probably would be the most likely person for that story to come from anyway. This time, I'm just going to take it easy and ignore it completely. No matter how much I find myself wanting to get into an argument about it with everybody else around here. They might think we're getting along way too easily right now. Viewer mail. In fact, if David really were in love with someone here, then that would explain why he keeps harping on about what we look like from the outside when it comes to our relationship. because that's how he wants his own memory of us to be, like in a romance novel or something. I wonder who it could possibly be. Your mail! Hey there! Finish that quotation! Sorry, the rest of the quote. A picture is worth 1,000 words. I hope to see you finish it soon. Thanks for your hard work! Viewer mail. This time you should put the girl in the middle of the page on top again and close them all around her, but this time with less clothes on. At least underwear. Or maybe some bathing suits or something. If there's a lot of skin showing, then it shouldn't be long before someone makes an effort to steal your pictures. Or at least start taking pictures of their own. So please pay attention to the safety of your equipment. Viewer mail. I already said it before, but David should learn the names of the people in this town and try to get closer to them. So far, I feel that he always seems very distant with everyone here. Maybe he doesn't understand how to relate to the local people since they don't have human voices. Sydney and Sizeable Sibling tighten the constraints. The day after their fight, Sydney began to wake up earlier. She had slept enough, and she couldn't afford to lose any more time. In order to keep up with the fast pace of life she was used to, she needed to get up early every morning. Since yesterday, when she had gone back home to sleep, the entire family had been awake and working as usual. Viewer mail was tied in the basement and well fed. Sydney, how's it going, buddy? Do you want to watch a video with me? That way we'll both be entertained while we wait for someone important to show up. I made it funny, but seriously, it would be nice to know what we are supposed to do with ourselves next. The video thing worked out pretty well last time, so let's give it another try. Viewer mail! Hello! Nice to see you again. Did you enjoy watching the video? I had fun making it for you. What do you think about what we've done so far today? I hope everything went well for you. Is it true that you're leaving now? Can't say I'm all that sad about it. I mean, sure, I was having fun spending time with you guys, but things are never going to get better as long as you insist on living in this dump and putting yourself on display like this. And honestly, I'm pretty glad about getting to spend more time with my sister instead. You always seem to push her away. Guess that means I get more time with her now, huh? I hope she likes the food I cooked for her. Oh, yeah, before I forget, I haven't told you yet, but my name is Sis and this is my little brother. I can be a bit crazy sometimes, but I promise you that I will definitely protect you from harm and try to help you when you need it. I hope we all end up as good friends. It would really suck if we didn't. Okay, I better go now. Take care. Viewer mail. You remember the boy who wrote David on the wall outside of the school? Well, that was me. He's just a stranger who has no idea about what you are trying to do here. I will give him the message as soon as I see him again. I may be small, but I am still someone important. Even I have the power to change things around me. Viewer mail. It looks like our business with David is finally over. I wouldn't expect much more trouble from him now, especially not after the way you guys handled him yesterday. We should be able to settle down and relax, even if only for a short while. Thank you for handling that issue for us. And you should have more confidence in the way we operate. We're not a bunch of incompetent idiots like you seem to think we are. I'll continue doing my job, and I'm sure you can count on the others as well. There are some things that we don't need to share with everyone, and we won't tell you anything unless we have to. So for now, sit tight and stay out of the way. Viewer mail. Our conversation yesterday wasn't that bad. If you really didn't want to talk with me, then why did you come out to the lobby? Why were you standing in front of that door anyway? Of course, I'm curious about the way you and Mr. Wu talk to each other, so I came to ask you some questions. But I guess I was too late. I could have saved myself the trouble by asking those first things before I came over there in person. David returns to his room. Dave, good morning, everyone. I hope you slept well. I'm sure you probably have a lot of work waiting for you. But don't worry, I'll help you out. Everyone, take it easy. I'll get that mess sorted out in no time. Then you can focus on your own work. If I can't handle something, I'll find someone else who can. Don't worry about me. I got it covered. Let me know if there is anything I can help you with, okay? Oh, yeah. By the way, sorry for whatever happened last night. I didn't know people were gonna get hurt. No one told me they would be coming up to my room. I swear I didn't see them at all. It wasn't my fault. I guess that must sound weird because I don't act like I'm being attacked. I'm fine with anyone approaching me like normal. I don't mind chatting with you guys. Really, I love talking to everyone. It makes my day whenever I'm surrounded by so many friendly faces. But enough about that. I'm off now to work hard and make sure nothing goes wrong. Oh, yeah, and make sure you all clean up behind yourselves. That means everyone. See you later. The new teacher returns to the classroom. Teacher, the next 3 days are going to be rough. Make sure you prepare well for the final exam. And if you fail, you can forget about getting a passing grade. Let's try our best together. Remember, there are no shortcuts. Once the exam starts, just concentrate on the questions at hand. You can do it. Just believe in yourself. And good luck. While the students are studying, Mr. Wu enters the office and quietly begins working on something important on the computer screen. As he types away, the old man smiles warmly and continues writing letters. Mr. Wu, everything is finally set. I need to send a few emails and make some phone calls, but it doesn't look like anyone will notice them. David takes the benchmark exam. 1. Make a statement that uses all English letters that none repeat. Write as many as you can within 15 minutes. 2. Write as many words as you can using a random set of characters. Use the letters in this order. With you, CGPA, then home as PTUYZDQWXYRKBCJT. And you must use all of them. You will have 10 minutes. 3. Write a story about a person who is very sad. 4. Draw a map to show where you live. Add as many details as possible. 5. List all the things you'd buy if you were $100. Explain how you would spend the money. 6. Give 2 reasons you would choose one college over another. 7. Choose a friend to describe what he or she likes to eat and drink. 8. Describe your favorite activity. 9. Write a poem that contains every letter of the alphabet capitalized. 10. Tell an embarrassing story about yourself. 11. Write a haiku poem. 12. Draw a picture to go with your story about the person who is sad. 13. Write a story about someone trying to escape from prison. 14. Write the biography of someone famous. 15. Describe an invention that has changed the world. 16. Write a book review of your favorite book. 17. Explain why you would choose one school over another. 18. Draw a picture of a place you've never been to before. 19. What is a good way to solve a problem and explain. 20. Name 5 animals that you would like to meet. 21. Write a list of ways to stay safe when you are walking around alone at night. 22. Read the following passage. Summarize it. 23. Write down all the things you need to do today. 24. How can you tell that someone is lying? 25. Write an essay describing a famous event. 26. What is your opinion on using computers at school? 27. Write a story about a person who wins the lottery. 28. Write a story about a person who works in a factory. 29. Describe a difficult situation that you found yourself in and explain how you dealt with it. 30. Describe an important holiday in your country. 31. Write a letter to someone you haven't seen or spoken with for a long time. 32. Imagine that there's going to be an earthquake in your city tomorrow morning. What would you do? 33. Describe a house that you would like to build. 34. Describe a difficult job that you applied for and failed. 35. Write a short paragraph describing yourself. 36. What is the biggest problem facing your country right now? Why do you think it's important? 37. Choose one of the following topics. 38. Talk about your last birthday party. 39. Describe a kind of animal that you've never seen in real life. 40. Give 5 words that describe your best friend. 41. Write an email to your family telling them what you did yesterday. 42. Describe a dream you once had. 43. What is a good rule to follow in life? 44. Write a story about a person who helps others. 45. Describe your worst nightmare. 46. Write a story about an evil king. 47. Write a story about a man who tries to find a treasure. 40. Write a story about a child who lives in a big city. 49. Write a story about a princess who goes on a journey. 50. If you could travel through time, where would you go? 51. What's the most interesting thing you learned in class today? 52. Invent a new sport. 53. Describe a time when something really bad happened to you. What happened and what did you learn from it? 54. Write a story about someone who finds a magic lamp. 55. Write a poem describing a beautiful flower. 56. Draw a picture to go with your story about a person who wins the lottery. 57. Draw a picture to go with your story about a person who works in a factory. 58. Write a short story about a woman who becomes a famous actress. 59. What is the most popular sport in your country? Do you like playing it? 60. Describe a problem that your teacher asked you to solve and explain why you couldn't figure out the answer. 61. Imagine you wake up in the middle of the night and you're all alone in your house. You hear a strange noise coming from outside. What do? 62. Think of 3 adjectives that describe your mother or father. 63. Write a diary entry for the day after your next birthday. 64. Write a story about a girl who gets into trouble.